Hey y'all, love from Southeast Texas. Khaki here, and I want to welcome you back to my home. So, for about a week now, I've been trying to figure out how to pull this whole thing together. I've been breaking all the rules for a YouTube channel. I haven't been uh, posting on certain days and at certain times and this, that, and something else in order to get the algorithm to pick up the channel and actually move it forward to people. But the thing is I just didn't know where to start. I don't know how to start because my head and my heart are so full. Like, I can't even begin to tell you. The stories are numerous and long. So, and very deeply personal. But that's where it's going to eventually wind up because therein lies my perception. There is where the lessons were learned. There is where I was formed. But I didn't know where to start. So I decided just to start where it all began for me. Back in 2018, I just had a thought one day. I honestly don't remember what was going on in the news cycle because I really never pay that much attention to the news cycles, especially anymore. But for whatever reason, I was cleaning the house that day and I was having thoughts about people of the Islamic faith. And of course, I have compassion and love for most people, not extremists. I mean, if any person, I don't care what religion they are, is dead set on going about killing people, I don't have a lot of patience for them. So I'm conflicted. And of course, I'm thinking from a Christian perspective. And I'm like, God, how could these people be so wrong? And he said to me, and yes, going forward, you must know that I believe that God speaks to me. I believe that God speaks to everyone. It's just that not everyone knows how to listen. But when he spoke to me, he jolted me quite a bit because he said, you're all wrong. Excuse me. You're all wrong. He said, all, y'all. So naturally, I was a bit taken aback because I had always been raised up to believe that I was perfectly right and everybody else was wrong, right? Well, I continued on just living my life as I always had. I wound up a couple of years later up in Indiana living with my man thing. I had the 9 to 5. Our expenses were low up there compared to what they had been in Florida where I had lived prior. The kid was in school. I mean, everything was going great. And then lo and behold, in February, I get a telephone call. My disabled son, who had been living in a group home for a couple of years or so prior to that, was in the hospital, very gravely ill. They finally get him on the phone, and he's assuring me, Mom, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Don't come down. Everything's fine. Okay, so who do I believe? What do I do? Oh my God, what do I do? And I'm praying. And God brings to my memory the story of Abraham and Isaac. how he had told Abraham to bring Isaac up the mountain to sacrifice him. And before the memory ever even came fully, or before he ever even finished his sentence, I was like, no. I said it out loud and very angrily. I was like, no. In other words, you can't have my son. No. The very next thing he told me was that if you will allow me to have him, Satan can no longer use him against you. And of course, at the time, I was thinking that meant that my son was going to die. And I had been making plans and preparations to bring him back home with me. Because the truth of the matter is, my son is dying. He has a very rare genetic disease that will eventually take his life. So it is something that I've been living with and attempting to prepare myself for a very long time. But I'll be honest with you, I'm never going to be ready. But I was at that time, at that moment, secretly, excuse me, making plans to bring him back home with me so that I could go back to taking care of him. I wasn't satisfied with the group home situation he was in. Excuse me. I mean, he was okay, but it wasn't optimal, and it certainly wasn't what I felt I could do one-on-one with him at home. But here was the problem. Either I quit my job because I wouldn't have had any vacation time or anything coming to me, and they just would have fired me. So leave the job and make a mad dash to Texas, or listen to him and to God for that matter, and just turn it all over to God. It was a crazy, horrible place to be, I'll be honest. But that's ultimately what I decided to do. Stay there, finish my plan, trust God. And that's what I did. So, in about June of 2020, I had the money saved up, excuse me, to bring him up there with us and get us a different, bigger place, yada yada. And the man thing proceeds to tell me that he doesn't want to do that. That didn't follow along with his plan. He had a plan for his future, and that wasn't part of it. And honestly, I understood that completely because, excuse me, taking care of a disabled person full time is hard. And especially if it's not your own child. I mean, I got it. I got it. I wasn't angry with him. I wasn't sad, hurt, upset. None of that. None of that came up, oddly enough. Just our paths were going in different directions. Okay. So I packed up my belongings and my son, and we came back to my hometown in Texas. Found us a house, moved my son in, started taking care of him. And I decided at that point, because relationships just had never really worked out for me. That particular relationship I was in for 15 years. It was the longest one I had ever been in. Prior to that, 6, 7 years max. So I just decided that that was it. I wasn't going to try again. And again, I'm not sad or hurt or upset by that. It was just a decision that I made. And I also kind of thought that maybe for the first time in my life, I could concentrate on something besides my sex life, right? I decided that I was going to be celibate and carry on pursuing my spiritual side of things in my life because there was so much that I didn't understand. Like, especially when God said, all of y'all are wrong. So, rocking along, it really wasn't difficult, especially at my age, right? But I just happened to be having a conversation with my son one day. And he was like, "Hey, Mom, have you ever heard of the Mandela effect?" I said, "No. What is that?" And so he told me a little bit about it. "Oh, you should look it up online. Uh, blah blah blah." I don't even remember what example he brought to me in the beginning, but that's precisely what I did. I went online, staying home and taking care of him. Like, wasn't working. There's only so much housework you have to do, and then the rest of the day you're just kind of there's nothing to do. So that's when the whole YouTube, Netflix thing kicked in for me, which is something I had never had the advantage of being able to do before. So I was consuming a lot, right? And the one of the very first things that I found, besides, the Fruit Loops and Skippy or Jiffy or whatever, it was Bible stuff. um, Specifically, and whoa, let me stop actually right there and make a disclaimer for anyone who's a Christian who is watching this. I want you, before you proceed with the rest of this video, to make a determination about your faith. Do you have faith in God? Do you trust God? Are you certain that your faith is built upon a rock? Because if not, you really should turn it off right now. Because my faith is pretty rock solid throughout my lifetime, and those stories will come. But throughout my lifetime, God has proven himself to me over and over and over again. I have never seen him. I've had no burning bush moments. But I have had moments where there's no way anybody could convince me that it was anything other than God that had stepped in and intervened for me, either to save my life or to turn a particularly bad situation around to make something that would have really hurt me turn into something that really helped. So, yeah, I've got a rock solid faith in God to the point where if we ever come to that time that we've all been conditioned to think is coming, where you will either denounce your faith or lose your head, either figuratively or literally, I will smile in their face and tell them to do whatever they have to do. But you're not changing my mind. God is real. He is alive and He is in control. And I have no problem whatsoever dying on that hill. However, the first Mandela effect that I came across had to do with my Bible. And I'm even going to do a little show and tell for y'all here. This is my Bible. You can see that the front cover is quite discolored. And that's because it survived a house fire that my son set when he was 3 years old. And it's discolored that way because this book was sitting on top of it. My other copy of this book, of course, was trash. But my Bible survived. And I've had it since I was 14 years old. It shows its age. It's well worn. And the New Testament, which I studied a lot, is all marked up with my notes and whatnot. So, excuse me, I'm not here to try to say that I'm some sort of perfect Bible scholar or anything like that. But being born again at 14, it's a pretty, we'll say, malleable age. And I just got consumed with it. I read it and I read it and I studied it because I wanted to know. I wanted to know how to make my life perfect. And the one thing that I came across was the verse about the blank laying down with the lamb. And from my childhood, that has been a lion. You can go online even now and find pictures of a lion laying down with a lamb. Elvis Presley put out a song. You know, that's what it said. I just found a video clip which I posted in the community posts, I think. It might have come out a video, I'm not sure. Of the 1976, I want to say, television version of Jesus of Nazareth. It's a movie we always used to watch around Easter time. And that's what he says. So I was absolutely convinced that they were wrong. You know, I'm going to look this up. This is crazy. I looked it up online, but then it occurred to me, well, you know what? They can tell you anything they want you to know or want you to believe online. I'm going to the book, right? Always go to the book, the paper and ink. And this is also one that I've had for a very, very long time. And if you don't know what this is, This is a Strong's Concordance. You can, it works something like a dictionary. You can take any word that you can think of. If you don't know the Bible chapter and verse, which I don't, because I'm not good at memorization, I am good at remembering, not good at memorization of chapter and verse. So I can tell you what it says. I can tell you what a verse is, but I can't tell you which one it is or where to find it. That's where this book comes in very heavy, because you look up the word and it literally lists every single place in the Bible where that word is mentioned. So I go and I try to look it up, and guess what? It's not there. There was another one that they mentioned on the same video, about the Mandela effect thing. And it was about putting new wine into old bottles. And don't put new wine into old bottles lest they break and your new wine is spilled. Put new wine into new bottles. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What? The Bible verse said wine sack. Why would something like that stand out in my memory? Wine sack. WINESAC. Wine sack. A, it was spelled funny. B, we don't put wine in sacks anymore unless you want to count the stuff in a box. It's a plastic bladder bottles. No. Having gone to the Strongs led me to go to my Bible, and guess what? My Bible no longer says these things. This Bible that has very obviously been with me for so many years, proof that it been through the house fire. That was back in, I don't know, 1999, I believe. That's my Bible. And my Bible no longer says what it used to say when I studied it so hot and heavy when I was a teenager. That's why I say, unless your faith is rock solid, you got to be careful. Well, you really don't even have to be careful. You just have to be able to hold on to it. Because had my faith been any lesser than what it is, I truly believe that might have driven me completely insane. It still shook me to my very core, because I'm like, how? How? And for so many months, I went on and on and on in my head trying to figure out how. How did they do that? How did they do that? I can understand that they can yank, pull, and manipulate anything they want to online, because that can be completely controlled. It's computerized. But that, my friends, is paper and ink. I finally had to decide that the how and why of that was none of my business. Because again, going back to my faith, God is in control. And He always will be. So they can do whatever they want to do. yank, pull, manipulate, distort. And you know why I don't have to worry about it? Because that word also says that God has written his word in our hearts. So they can even, and they have, and they may again, take this book from me and burn it, completely destroy it, take it completely out of existence. And you know what? They can't touch it. And reprints. And oh, dear Lord, some of the new translations, like wow, very distorted, very, very far from the actual Word of God. Why and how do I know that? Because it's written in my heart. In the very core of my being, do I know God? And there's nothing that they can do to take that away from me. So that is where my journey began. From a stupid little question that my son asked me, "Hey, Mom, have you ever heard of the Mandela effect?" And sometimes I kind of wish it would have stuck with, Fruit Loops and Jiffy peanut butter. But it's to speak to that as well, by the way. You know, again, they can manipulate anything, anything by using computers to do so. And everybody in the world, still, I hear people talking about these different things, Oh, well, there used to be a cornucopia on Fruit of the Loom. I know there was. And I called the company, and the company says, no, that never existed. Well, the company can say whatever they're paid to say. The images don't exist because they have all been erased. Well, they have mostly all been erased. And here's another thing that'll really play with your head. You might find something like the clip that I found of Jesus saying the Bible verse the way I remembered it in the movie. It wouldn't surprise me at all if I went back to that very same movie that I just watched, what was it, like a week, maybe two ago? Watched it again, and it would be changed. That would not take me by surprise. Because if, in fact, they do miss some things, and I don't know who they are, it's probably not a person that you could lay your hands on. But if they find out, or if it finds out that it has missed something somewhere along the way, well then, oh, thanks for finding that needle in a haystack for me. Now let me just take that away from you as well. And if you think about what something like that could do to the human psyche, unless they have a rock solid foundation that they are built upon, it literally could drive you insane. And I believe that's the whole point. That's the whole point behind changing things that were, oh gosh, I don't even know what is the word, like pop culture, like super, not really important. I mean, I guess maybe some of these things are super important to people. I think there was a Star Wars movie that was changed, or excuse me, the Forrest Gump movie I know was changed. I mean, these are things that people know that they know that they know, and now they go back and they try to prove to themselves that they know right, or that they're remembering properly, and they can't. So, and that's just one thing. The whole Mandela effect thing is just one thing that they have used recently. Again, the magical year of 2020 did a whole lot to wreck some people too. Wrecked people. And rightly so. Grandma's in a nursing home, and she may or may not have some type of a disease, but I guarantee you, after being locked down away from her family, she's dying of loneliness, sadness. This is a very cruel place at the moment. But that's the reason why I'm here. Because to be quite honest with you, it's been cruel for a very, very long time. We just didn't know. And why did we not know? Honestly, because we weren't paying attention, in a way. Also, because I firmly believe that we were under a spell, like a real life, honest to God spell. Some people saw through it from the very beginning, and they tried to tell us, but we wouldn't listen because we had been so brainwashed along the way. We're like, oh, that person's a kook. They need a tinfoil hat. You did it. I did it. We all did it. Until something in our lives brings us to a point, like my son almost dying, brings us to a point where we just have to surrender. It's a rock bottom in a lot of ways. Just as you would go through with a drug or alcohol problem. Eventually, even when it comes to your faith, there's like a rock bottom that you hit. And you can do one of two things. You can either say to yourself, there is no God. There is no God, because if there was, how could all of this be? And there are a whole lot of people out there that have done just that. Or you can hold on to the fact that you're convinced and you know that there is a God, but how can this be? And I'm not satisfied with the answer, oh, well, that must be God's will, must be part of God's plan. BS. That's not true. So then what are you left with after that? What are you left with after that? You're left with turning that spotlight around on yourself and looking in the mirror and going, where have I missed this? Because that's precisely what's going on. We've been missing it because we have been brainwashed into believing a whole lot of BS. Mentally, physically, spiritually, we have been totally misled. But the few people who were awake from the beginning finally found a few people who were willing to listen and turn that spotlight around and go inward. And the more people that have done that, the more the rest of us have been able to come around. And it has started a snowball effect that they can't stop. No amount of censorship, browbeating, whatever. There's just no amount of nothing that they can do about it because Spirit now has people's attention, finally. And there are a few people who are still holding out, trying to hold on to that lie, basically, because they've been conditioned to fear anything that goes outside of that conditioning. They're afraid. But 365 times in this book, right here, 365, and that number is no accident. It says, don't fear. Do not fear. Have no fear. When are you going to start to listen to the very book that you swear you live by? Again, there's a whole lot of people that couldn't find the answers, so they fell off and just decided that as far as they were concerned, God did not exist. And you know what I blame for that? Religion. Not just Christianity specifically, but that's a big one. It's a big one. And I do not hate anyone. I don't harbor any resentment against anyone for whatever religion they choose to follow. I do, however, harbor some resentment against the religions themselves because they teach some pretty whack stuff and they lead people astray. And it's the blind leading the blind, and everybody is falling into the ditch. Well, not everybody. There are some people out there nowadays who are brave enough to turn around from the direction that the crowd is going because that goes totally against human nature. We all want to be part of the clique. You may as well go ahead and admit it to yourself because it's true. You want to be part of the club. You want to be part of the clique. You want to be part of the group, of the team, of whatever. You don't want to feel isolated and wrong. You don't want to be traveling north when the whole crowd of everybody else is traveling south. It goes against your physical human nature. But it is right in line with what is spiritually correct. And it is what is necessary in order to come out from under the spell, to be able to have the clarity, to be able to be okay with not knowing everything. How can you make sense out of anything these days? Knowing, and we all know, that they have changed and manipulated, censored, blotted out so much. You can drive yourself crazy trying to figure it out, or you can just be okay. I don't have to know. I'm okay. God has got me, and I'm okay. I will know when I cross over. Now I see through a glass darkly, but then I shall know in full. It was already told to you a couple of thousand years ago that you're not meant to, nor will you ever know the answer to everything. Yes, that is also human nature, but you have to be. It's really a self-discipline thing. You have to discipline yourself to be okay with not knowing everything. Some things are just hidden until the time is right. And I think for today, I will just stop it there. I am going to do my best to discipline myself, to follow the rules, which is something that I was never any good at. But if I want the computer to work for me, then that's exactly what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to come up with a schedule. And as soon as I figure out what that may be, I will be happy to let you know. As of right now, I'm just telling you that my intention going forward from today for 2026, that I am going to discipline myself and try to bring some cohesiveness to this channel. Because there may only be one or two of you out there that have reached out and actually made comments and whatnot. But you know what? I really appreciate you, because even if it's only ever that one or two people that interact with me, I'm okay with that, because those one or two people are the one or two people that this channel was made for. I said from the beginning, and I will say until the very end, that Spirit is going to bring to these videos the people whom He intends to see them, who He knows will have the most benefit from them. And that's the purpose. That's the reason. And I'm okay with that. So, sending you love, light, and peace, beautiful Spirit. Until next time.